Deva Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So thank you very much for joining today. We wanted to seek the blessings of Radha Madhava, Radha Shyamsundar, Krishna Balaram, Bal Gopal, Nrsimhadev, Gaunitai Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. So we are in the third half, the 2/3 of the Bhagavad Gita now. So we've done 2/3. This is the final third. So chapter 13 is the beginning of Gyan Yoga. The first 6 chapters was Karma Yoga. The second 6 chapters, the theme is Bhakti Yoga. Now is Gyan Yoga. And we'll see why in a minute. Gyan means knowledge. And this chapter begins with a series of questions by Arjuna, asking for knowledge. So the chapter's name is Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. So the final 6 chapters focus on Gyan, transcendental wisdom, which helps one become detached from materialistic aspirations and simultaneously attaches one to Krishna. So this is very important. It's not that we can detach ourselves from the material world just like that. We have to be attached to something transcendental, superior, and that is the Supreme Lord. If we attach to the Lord, then detachment in this world takes place automatically. Chapter 13 covers topics previously discussed, but explores them in a more analytical way. Thus, wise readers can take advantage of the logical presentation made by Krishna to strengthen their conviction and deepen their understanding. So the themes are as follows. Arjuna asks Krishna to define 6 subjects. Prakriti, which is this nature, this material world. Purush, the enjoyer. That's the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Kshetra is the field of activities, which is the body. That's where our activities take place. Kshetragyan is the knower of the field, the soul. We know our own body a little bit, not completely, a little bit. Jnanam is knowledge in the process of knowing. Gyayam is the object of knowledge, who is the Supreme Lord. That's the object of knowledge. So Arjuna asks him these technical questions. Krishna describes what is knowledge. He describes the nature of the soul. And he also describes the world that we live in, material nature, and our interaction with this world. Okay, let's get going. So, as always, shall we start with Priyanjali? Are you there? Ah, she's not able to. Let's, Devina, why don't you start?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Devina.
Arjun said, "Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusa, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the body of and the object of knowledge." The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. O scion of Bharat, you should understand that I am the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. The knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in the Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect.
Keep going.
Text 6 to 7, the five great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses and the mind, the five sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress and agitate, the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered, in summary, to be the field of activities and its interactions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done. Well, good reading. Arjun, although an established transcendentalist, plays the part of a materially entangled individual, so he can pose questions for the benefit of humanity. Arjun asks Krishna to define 6 subject matters. Prakriti, nature, Purush, the enjoyer, Kshetra, the field of activities, that's the body. Kshetragyan, the knower of the field. Jnanam, knowledge, and the process of knowing, and Jnanam, which is the object of knowledge. So he answers the 6 questions. Prakriti, he says, is Mother Nature. Purush is the one who enjoys. Kshetra is the field in which one can act within this material world. If we didn't have this body, we wouldn't be able to interact in this world. Kshetragyan is the entity, the soul, the living entity, which experiences the field of actions. Jnanam is the knowledge and the process of acquiring knowledge. And Jnanam is the object of knowledge. So this is 6 questions. These 6 subjects are key constituents of Vedic philosophy, and Krishna therefore spends the entire chapter defining and discussing them. His astute inquiries, Arjun's astute inquiries, create the opportunity for Krishna to offer answers to life's most profound mysteries. Krishna begins by defining Kshetra and Kshetragyan. So he defines the field of activities, our body, and the soul. So lesson 52 is we can learn about various constitutions of our body, or so that we can understand how to control our desires and focus our attention on the Lord. So what are these different parts of our body? Okay, there's the 5 gross elements. That's what the body is made up of. Earth, i.e. the bones, the skin. Water, the vast majority of the body is actually made up of water, 70-80% or so. Fire, there's a fire that's within us. It's actually in the stomach, and it's called the fire of digestion. Very important fire. Air, a lot of air within our body. And ether is like the gray matter, the sky. Sometimes where the intellect lies. So these are the 5 gross elements. You can see them, or you can't see ether, and you can't see air, but you can feel them. Then there's the 5 objects of the senses. So the body has 5 objects which it will focus on. The form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. So these are called Indriya Gochara. And then we have the 5 knowledge acquiring senses and the 5 working senses. So what are these? Senses are eyes. So with the eyes, we see the form. With the ear, we hear the sound. With the nose, we smell. With the tongue, we taste. With the skin, we touch. So we possess these knowledge acquiring senses. Through these senses, we get information. And then what are the working senses? The hands, need them to be working. Legs, voice, eye, anus, and genitals. And then the mind, right? So this is 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. That's 20 altogether, right? That's 20 aspects of our body. And then we have the mind, which is 21, intelligence, 22, which is also known as buddhi, and false ego, the ahankar within us. And that ahankar is basically us. Ahankar is basically we thinking we are the body. But this is all external to us. Yeah. So 23 different things which constitute the field of activities. Then there's something called the pradhan or the avyaktam, which is unmanifested, which is a little hard to understand. So we won't go into that too much. So material nature in its subtle stage is called pradhan. This is the pradhan. Subtle stage, it means it hasn't formed yet. It is the undifferentiated sum total of all material elements. Although they are undifferentiated, one can understand that the total material elements are contained therein. When the total material elements are manifested by the interaction of the three modes of material nature, the manifestation is called prakriti. It is the condition of material nature immediately previous to its manifestation as the pradhan. So basically what that's saying is before this body comes into being or any bodies come into being, they're pradhan, there's the unmanifested. And then when this three modes of material nature interacts with this world, satagun, rajagun, tamagun, then all of these elements manifest. So what else is in here? So what is it? The components of the field of activities, 24 elements. So this is the 24th element. So we go through transformations of the field of activities. We take birth, we grow a little bit, we stay for a while, we produce offspring, we dwindle, and then there's something called death. And the interactions of the field of activities, what the body goes through, desire, hatred, happiness, and distress. And the living entity, living symptoms are consciousness. How do we know the soul is in the body? Through consciousness, through conviction. And that manifests through the subtle body. So we have two types of bodies. We have the gross body, which is made up of these five material elements. And then there's a subtle body that carries the mind, carries the soul. That's the mind, intelligence, and ego. Those three things constitute the subtle body. So there's two bodies that we possess. One body you can see, the other body you can't see because it consists of the mind, intelligence, and ego. So this is a little technical, but this is effectively the body field of activities that we live in. So if we can understand these different elements, we can get a grasp of how to control the senses. All right, let's have a go. This is text 8 to 12. We've done it in a list format. Let's see who'd like to read. Priyanjali, are you able to read? If not, it's okay. Don't worry.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Oh, okay, go on.
Text 8 to 12. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, the renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perspection of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance.
So the Lord is explaining this is all knowledge. Jnanam. Jnanam. So, summary. These verses describe how Kshetragyan, the spirit soul, can disentangle himself from the Kshetra, the body, by cultivating Gyan, knowledge. Since true knowledge is revealed within the heart of a deserving person, the real method of acquiring knowledge is the cultivation of divine qualities, of which humility is foremost. Look at that. The first quality Krishna explains as humility. Knowledge is not about information and memorization, but rather about exemplary personal character and practical behavior. So knowledge is translated, we can have a lot of knowledge, but if we don't use that knowledge to become wise, then what's the use of that knowledge? If we use it to become wise, then we can have great personal character, and it will show in our behavior. One who nurtures a saintly disposition experiences a change of heart, which disentangles the soul, the eternal soul, from its deep-rooted identification with the body, which is a temporary dress. So, what's the lesson to take from here? Cultivate the quality of humility. And how do we cultivate humility? Humility basically means not to be proud, falsely proud. Okay. Humility, what is humility? Often is mistaken to be simply some sort of meekness in behavior. Humility can be, you become very weak and soft. But actually, that's not proper humility. Vaishnava humility is, however, a completely spiritual quality, not a material one. It comes from the understanding that one's real self is understanding one's real self in relation to God. Real humility is the understanding that one is but an instrument or ordered servant of the Supreme Lord. So that's the real humility, that whatever is being done, we are only acting according to the will of the Lord as his instrument. If we're thinking we are the doers, I am doing everything, I'm great, I'm wonderful, then we have a problem. That's not humility. However, we could have this sort of thinking. I do not have any good qualities. On my own strength, I cannot accomplish anything independently. And this is actually true. I am of no special significance in the vastness of creation. Although we are thinking we are the center of everything, actually we have, practically speaking, no relevance, practically speaking. My only qualification is the order of my Guru and Krishna. By their potency, I may be empowered to do anything as they wish. If Krishna wants us to become empowered, who can stop us? But if he wants to destroy us, who can stop that? Srila Prabhupada defines humility as not hankering for the satisfaction of being honored by others. Thus, a Vaishnava does not endeavor to prove his or her worth to others or to themselves. They simply endeavor to serve and please Krishna. This is a wonderful place to be because you get a lot of peace. When you are looking for honor and others to glorify you, others to praise you, will always be unhappy because that praise may not come. But if we are instead working in a way that that we're not looking for any honor, we're not looking for somebody to praise us we're just working because we enjoy doing this seva for God. That's a wonderful place to be. In a mood of real humility, one can act very boldly and confidently. Humility doesn't mean weakness, right? We're not weak. Vaishnavas are not weak. They're very, very strong. They can act very boldly and confidently. That's humility. But they're acting not on their own behalf. They're acting on behalf of the Lord. On one's personal behalf, a Vaishnava is very meek and tolerant. But when Krishna's service demands a humble Vaishnav will do the needful in a complete mood of service. In mundane humility, the focus is on one's own inadequacies. So if we're just humble for the sake of being humble, we just putting ourselves down. It's just I. It's all about me. I'm so bad. But actually, wait a minute. It's not about us, right? Rather than upon Krishna's mercy, I am in the center, not Krishna. That is a crucial distinction. And there are some examples. Hanuman, for example, he was so powerful, yet he used all of his power, all of his strength to serve the Lord, right? To serve the Lord. This is he was extremely humble, but at the same time, he was extremely strong, bold, confident, because he was always engaged in the service of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada is another example. He, at the age of 69, got on a boat to America. He knew nobody in America, but he spent his 70th birthday on the boat, 2-3 month journey to America. And he had 2 heart attacks on the way. And yet he acted with such great boldness. He knew nobody in America. He was all alone. Yet he was such a brave servant of the Supreme Lord. And he would never, and he established this Hare Krishna movement, which spread throughout the world in just a matter of a few years. But remember, he had nothing when he went to America. He had about 30 or 40 rupees, which was about $11, and he couldn't even convert them into dollars. But yet, because of his great conviction, his boldness, his confidence, he established a worldwide society of devotees. But he never claimed credit. He always would give the credit to his spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So this is the glory of a devotee and his humility. This humility is great strength. It's not weakness. All right, let's continue. Would like to read? Rohan, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal Brahman. The spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, his heads, faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. The supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. The supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and non-moving, because he is subtle. He is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all.
Very good. So, Krishna, you can carry on a minute. In this part here, he's explaining about the super soul, the Paramatma, who actually extends himself. He expands himself to be with everybody. So within this body, there are 2 souls. We are there, but also the super soul, the Paramatma, is seated next to us. He's there watching us, looking after us, witnessing what we're doing, guiding us, like that. Okay, please carry on.
Although the supersoul appears to be divided among all beings, He is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifest. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's parts. Thus, the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature.
Mm. So here is also saying the soul appears to be divided because he's in every one of us. But actually, he's never divided. He's situated as one. Okay. So, having described the Kshetra, Kshetragyan, and Jnanam, Krishnadas describes Gyayam, the object of knowledge. Who are we supposed to know? The purpose of knowledge is to realize that the soul and the supersoul, who are eternally individual, at the same time intimately connected. So we have a strong connection with God if we're willing to see that connection. God is very close to us. He's also far away, but he's also very close to us, seated next to us. It is the prerogative of the soul to understand the supersoul. But the supersoul is sometimes described as avigyanam, or unknowable. So how to reconcile this? How can you understand the supersoul? Very hard to understand it, because that's God. Empirical researchers who try to fathom the supreme using mundane logic and material sense perception are invariably baffled, and the supersoul within remains unknowable to them. So we're not going to be able to assess the Supreme Lord with our material senses or using mundane logic. However, those who approach the subject matter with a proper attitude, ready and willing to gain insight through the eyes of great teachers, can surely realize the supersoul, the object of all knowledge. So, what's the lesson to learn? That there is a difference between us, the soul, and the supersoul. The soul is known as Jivatma. Jiv means soul, and Atma also means soul. Jiv means very tiny. It's infinitesimally small, very, very small. The size of the soul is, if you take a tip of the hair and chop it into 10,000 pieces, which is itself impossible, we are one of those 10,000 pieces. Very, very small. The soul only knows its own body. So let's just compare that with the supersoul. The supersoul is known as Paramatma, is actually God. He's infinite, he's huge, Vibhu. He's aware of everybody and everything as well. Supernova. The soul is a secondary proprietor for one body. So we are the proprietor of this body only to the extent that we are renting it. We're just renting this body, right? But the body actually belongs to the supersoul. Supersoul is the supreme proprietor of all bodies. The soul is a secondary controller of senses. And the supersoul is a supreme controller of the senses. He's known as Rishikesh. The soul is fallible, i.e., it can make mistakes. The supersoul is infallible. The soul is a loving servitor, is subordinate, whereas the supersoul is a loving master, superior. And the soul has innumerable different living entities, whereas the supersoul, although he's everywhere, he's one. So you can see the difference between the soul and the supersoul. Both reside in this body. Right, last bit. Jayashri, would your son like to read? Or yourself?
Yeah, his mouth's full with his after school snacks, so I'll read. Yeah.
No problem, no problem.
Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the supersoul. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Some perceive the supersoul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. O chief of the Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and the non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. One who sees the supersoul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the supersoul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees. One who sees the supersoul equally present everywhere, in every living being, does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness.
Very good.
Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and who can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Very good reading. Kshetra Gyan Vibhag Yog. That's the name of this chapter. So nature, the enjoy, and consciousness. It's a very technical chapter, but these verses here, the chapter concludes with a description of the final two terms, Prakriti and Purush. So talks about this material world, the nature of this world, and talks about the Supreme Lord. The conditioned soul desires to control and enjoy matter, Prakriti. So that's why we are trying to get as many possessions, get as much relationships with others based on this body, because we're trying to control our environment and enjoy this world. But that's a false premise to live on. It is this enjoying spirit that binds him to this material world. The supersoul, however, is the actual enjoyer. He is Purush. And everything, material nature and the individual souls, is ultimately meant for his enjoyment. So, just as pouring water over the root of a tree energizes the trunk, the branches, and the twigs, just like if we try to water a tree by watering each leaf, it won't work, right? that tree will eventually die, perhaps. But if we water the root, the whole tree gets nourished. Similarly, if we offer worship and service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead for His pleasure and satisfaction, automatically it brings satisfaction to all living entities, including ourselves. So by practicing bhakti, which is watering the root, we try to elevate our consciousness. So this is the very important thing to do. Our consciousness needs to be at least at the human level. If our consciousness, if our karma, our actions, if our desires are animalistic, for example, we like to sleep a lot, right? That's what bears do. If we like to eat anything and everything, doesn't matter whether it's clean or not clean or fresh or whatever, that's although we have a human body, our mood, our attitude, our consciousness is at the level of a pig. If we eat anything, whether it's we're meant to eat it or not, whether we are causing harm to others by enjoying that food on our plate, then our behavior is very much like a wild animal, like a tiger or a lion. Although we have a human body, our karma, our consciousness, and our desires are all animalistic. So if that's the case, if our consciousness is at that level, then our next life will also transfer into the animalistic life. It's a law of nature. It's so simple to understand. If we behave like something, we're going to achieve that. And that is why we try to serve God, try to behave in a humble, gentle way, and try to do as much as we can in relation to the Supreme Lord. It doesn't mean we ignore everything else. We don't ignore anything in our life. Everything can be connected to the Supreme Lord. Our work can be connected to our families can be connected to the Supreme Lord. Our hobbies can be connected to the Supreme. There's nothing that, pretty much nothing that we cannot connect to the Supreme Lord. And by putting that connection in place, then we are slowly but surely improving our consciousness, our relationship with the Supreme. And that is what Bhagavad Gita is teaching us, how to connect ourselves to the Supreme Lord, become attached to the Supreme Lord. And in that way, we become detached from this world. So I wanted to stop there. That's chapter 13. Any questions, please? Anything? Oh, let me just check the messages first. Okay, yes, Rohan.
Hare Krishna. I have two questions.
Sure.
First of all, how would you sort of explain to a person who says the whole of the Bhagavad Gita is based around the soul? We can agree on that, right? Well, a lot of it is based on the concept of a soul.
Yeah, Krishna puts Arjun on the spiritual platform, which is the platform of the Atma. Yes.
But what would you say to someone who doesn't believe there's actually a concept of a soul and thinks that everything we do is based off chemical impulses or...
Yep. Which is
What would you say to that?
vast majority of people, right? Well, if we look at it, most people at your school will have that impression because that's what they've been taught. What I would say to that is then if it's just some chemicals coming together and becoming life, if you like, what's the point? What's the point of really working hard, endeavoring to make great achievements, to try to enjoy life, what's the point? Because it's just chemical reactions, isn't it? So what are we actually achieving by trying to...
Oh, it is 4th of September. Okay.
We're trying to achieve, what is the aim of life? Why are we in existence? If we're just some chemicals, what's the point of life, right? If there's no... And are we saying that Mother Nature put some chemicals together for some people, which are complete, and for some incomplete? Some are born, without arms or legs, or cannot see properly, may not be able to function properly. Are we saying Mother Nature is cruel, is so imperfect that these anomalies take place? Are we saying that everything in this world is accidentally brought together in some chemical mixture? So that, how does that work with a building that you're living in? How does that work? Because did somebody not construct that building?
Are you talking about it can't just be down to sort of random events taking place, causing specific things to happen? Your brain is formed in a specific way, just randomly. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Is it just a whole lot of randomness that's taking place? Is if this wonderful order in this world has come about because of a big bang? One time I went to a school and this chemistry teacher was, sort of interjecting. So I had a good laugh. I said, okay, why don't you, what did I say? I said something like, if on Friday evening you do an experiment, a chemical explosion takes place in your laboratory, massive explosion, right? And then over the weekend, what will you expect? Can you ask your children to write down what wonderful order there will come out of that explosion? And let's see what they come back with on Monday morning. During the weekend, let them think about, from a massive explosion, what will come out of it, right? At the end of the weekend on Monday morning. The students had a good laugh because, of course, when you have a big explosion, you're going to have chaos, right? You're not going to have order. If anybody thinks out of this massive big bang, there's a fantastic order that's come out of it, how illogical is that? If you're thinking worshipping God is illogical, well, thinking of that the Big Bang actually happened, causing this fantastic order in this world, that's, I would say, illogical. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I sort of understand what you're saying. I think, yeah. The other question is, what's your views on sort of evolution and...
Yeah. We
Because
believe
sorry?
we believe in evolution, but not evolution of the body. It's the evolution of the soul. Because when the soul is perhaps in a pretty unconscious state, like grass or plants, it's not very developed consciousness. As they...
But what I mean is like the evolution of the body. So like because I think it was a ISKCON lecture, and they were talking about they called Charles Darwin, the father of evolution, that he was a rascal.
Yeah.
And I just want a bit more information about that. Is it actually, does Krishna say that evolution's like rubbish, or...
Well, the scriptures may or may not refer to it because it's something that doesn't make... It does refer to the evolution of the soul, right? The soul does evolve into different bodies. Now, can a body change? Not necessarily. It can't change because of the circumstances around it necessarily. And Darwin, and I've got a few quotes of him, and I'll dig them out. I've got them somewhere. He says that if you look at the constitution of the eye, right? It's such a complex machine, the eye itself. There's no way that has evolved through its environment. It's actually cannot be possible for the eye to have such a wonderful, it's become such a wonderful machine through evolution. There's a few things that absolutely don't make no sense with Darwin. There's the missing link. There's how the bear turns into a whale because the bear keeps his mouth open, then he goes into the water, keeps his mouth open, and then suddenly he turns into a whale. You know, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense.
I don't actually mean like not totally everything Darwin said was true, obviously, but like I mean like for example, if you had a water dwelling creature which over thousands of years develops into a land creature, is I just wanted to see the views of our religion on it.
See, the Vedas already specifies there's 8.4 million species of life. Now, it's already specified the kinds of species of life that are in existence. And for them to change from one to another is quite unlikely. It's quite unlikely.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the theory of evolution agrees as well. It's because I've studied in biology a lot to do with this. And it talks about evolution occurring, but over sometimes millions of years. So it's just so that's why when they talk about the Ramayana taking place, for example, a million years ago or so, it's just what were humans the same type as us, like because they were Neanderthals, different type. So does that mean that Ram Bhagwan was a different type of human? I know it's a very
right.
topic almost,
Interesting. Actually, the humans humans were different in terms of their size, the capacity to live, the capacity to understand things. So in Satya Yuga, they were very advanced. They could live 100,000 years, for example, right? Hiranyakashipu spent something like 50, 60,000 years meditating. In Treta Yuga, their lifespan was 10,000 years. In Dwapar Yuga, it's 1,000 years. In Kali Yuga, it's perhaps 100 at the most. So over the ages, the quality of life and the standard of living has diminished from Satya Yuga to Treta Yuga to Dwapar Yuga to Kali Yuga. So the potential for humans has continuously been reduced. So from that point of view, there's an evolution, if you like, negatively affecting mankind.
Okay.
Yeah. But happy to discuss this further with you. We can take it offline. And because you've studied it, it'd be good to understand where it's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's one other question. Do you know text 34 where it says, "O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe"? Is there a view that there's only one sun? Or
right? Yes. In this universe, the Vedic injunction is that there's only one sun. However, there are millions of suns because there are millions of universes. But in this particular universe, there's one sun that shines its rays right throughout the universe. However, there are millions of other independent universes where the sun planet is in existence in all of those universes.
what I mean is like, what about stars and stuff? Because
that's there. But the sun is the sun.
so as in that But what Krishna said here is the sun alone illuminates all this universe, but surely it only illuminates in this sort of galaxy. I don't know. I'm just
Well, it depends how you define universe. The universe, we can go through the structure of the universe according to the Vedic tradition. And that is the heavenly planets. And also below us, they are the hellish planets. Now the sun governs, the one sun governs the illuminates all of that universe. There are stars, absolutely there are stars, but they have limit in terms of the amount of capacity of illumination they can give. The sun is overwhelming in terms of the illumination it gives through the universe.
okay. The reason I was asking is because the actual Sanskrit, it says it describes lokam as universe. I thought lokam meant world.
Lokam can mean the universe and the world. Yeah. But the
So
word,
do you think Krishna was saying this world?
no, this universe. He's definitely talking about the universe.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely talking about the universe. Because even if there are other galaxies, those galaxies are still serviced by that one universe. The sun services that whole universe.
Okay.
Yeah. So even
Thank
if
you.
there are galaxies, it doesn't matter. Because that's one sun is traveling throughout the whole universe. This is according to the Vedic cosmology. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It may
Thank
not
you.
completely coincide with the Western cosmology, but we have faith in the Vedic cosmology.
Okay. Thank you. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you for very good questions. Thank you. Appreciate that. Huh? So, Priyanjali, I think you've got some questions. What if people try to stop doing those 4 bad things? Is it their fault, or was that supposed to happen because of their previous karma? Priyanjali, what 4 bad things are you talking about?
The 4 bad things, like if you eat like anything, if it's muddy, you become a pig.
Oh, those 4 consciousnesses. Well, there was just examples. It was just an example of if we have sort of lower consciousness, even though we are in a human body, it means that in our next life, we may not get a human body because our consciousness is at the level of the animals. So our next life will follow our consciousness, our karma, our desires. Yeah. So it's whose fault is that? Well, it is upon us because we understand the difference between right and wrong. So if we continue to do crazy things, then we can expect crazy results, right? I have never been answered this question. Never the question, why am I? This question always confuses me. Why am I? Are you
Why
saying,
am I?
why am I? I. Why not? If you're thinking that I am surviving independently of God, I don't need God, I don't need anybody, then that I is, we call ahankar. It's false ego. It means we are under illusion. We don't understand this concept of I. But if we are thinking I am dependent on the Lord, I worship the Lord, I respect the Lord, I will remember the Lord, and I will try to connect with the Lord as much as I can in this life. Then our I is properly situated. So what do you mean, Priyanjali?
I mean, like, sometimes I feel that
You feel down.
why am I?
Who am I? Well, you are the spirit soul. You're a servant of God. First and foremost, you are servant of God. Just like from sugar, you can't take away the sweetness. From fire, you can't take away the heat, right? If you had a fire and there was no heat, you wonder what's going on. If you ate a sweet and it wasn't sweet, you think, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Just like that. So the dharma of sugar is sweetness. The dharma of fire is heat. Without heat, fire has no meaning. Without sweetness, sugar has no meaning. So in the same way, the soul, its dharma is to serve, to do things for others. Either we are serving our family, serving the country, serving our friends. We're always doing something for others. Or we're serving our senses, trying to enjoy ourselves. We're always trying to serve somebody. That's I. Our constitutional position is we are servants. But we've forgotten that we are servants of God. And that's why we are struggling in this world. So you and I and everybody are servants. Either we're servants of society, family, friends, or our own selfish needs, or God. And when we serve God, then we again are in our real original position where we're supposed to be. Then we'll become happy. At the moment, we are not going to be happy. Does that make sense, Priyanjali?
Yes, Prabhuji, but I have two more questions.
Sure.
If you were someone's servant and you always serve them, does that mean God wants you to serve them?
Wow. Yes. Very, very good. Okay. In this world, servant has a negative connotation. It is not a nice thing, right? Because servant means you are going to be mistreated. You're going to be exploited. They will make you do things that you don't want to do. But in the spiritual world, servant of God is actually a higher position than the master. Can you imagine that? In this world, if you're a servant, it means you're lower than that master. In the spiritual world, it's the opposite way around. The servant is actually the master. The reason being, when God is served, when we do something for God, He wants to do something back for us. He's so kind. He's the perfect master. So He will not just keep taking, He will also give. But the devotee will say, no, my Lord, I don't want anything from you. I am going to serve you. I don't want anything back from you. And the Lord will say, no, I want to give you something. And the devotee will say, no, sorry, I don't want anything, my Lord. I just want to serve you. I just want to make you happy. In this way, the servant defeats the Lord, and the Lord will do anything for that servant. So the servant becomes a master, and the master becomes a servant. So in terms of servant, are we meant to serve others? Yes. But we have to connect it with God. Somehow or other, connect it with God. Does that make sense, Priyanjali?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Good question. Very intelligent question. What was your other question?
Should you be dependent on God?
100%. 100%. It doesn't mean we make our God our servant. It doesn't mean we say to God, I want the latest Game Boy or whatever it is you guys play, PlayStation, whatever it is, or the latest iPhone. God, I am depending on you. You give me that. I'll be happy. That means we are treating God as our servant, right? We're treating God as our order carrier. When we say depend on God, it means we will do our very best, right? In our studies, in our friendships, in our loving our parents, we'll do our very best. But we know that it all is as a result of God's mercy on us. In that way, we depend on God, that it is only your kindness that you are allowing me to be an instrument for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So that's the way we depend on God. It's not that we don't go to work, we sleep all day thinking, okay, God, give me my pizza. It doesn't work that way. One who's dependent on the Lord is very busy serving the Lord constantly, all the time. No breaks.
So that means you just serve the God
You what?
without like being dependent on him.
You serve God, but it's not that we are not dependent on him, but we want to serve him as to the best of our ability. Yeah, to the best of, we want to please him. So we cook. When we cook in such a nice way, to the best of our ability, and we offer it to the Lord. It's not that we depend on the Lord. I'll just stick this salt in this sugar in, and hopefully it's all okay. It depends on the Lord. If it goes wrong, it's on you, my Lord. No, we put our best effort in.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. Very intelligent questions, huh? Yes, Bhavin?
That's very good. That little girl
Yeah.
wants to know. It is good. She must learn these things. And my question was, when you said something about the soul, you said our soul is very, very small. Do you think we can see our soul or not really? We can't see our soul, can we? Because
we are the soul.
The heart is not soul, is it?
No. The soul is a little spark of God. Tiny little spark of God.
Is that what
Spiritual.
You said, Jeev?
Jivatma. Jeev Atma.
So when you said about our hair, tiny, of 100,
10,000
of that.
That's
little
right.
thing. So
That's
it's all right. You did say all right, but I'm just thinking that's the tiny 10,000 bit, and that's the thing. When we die, that's the thing going away?
Yeah, that's what goes away. Correct. That's correct.
Soul.
That's what goes away.
Jivatma, you said Jivatma.
That's what leaves the body. That's correct. Very good. That's what leaves the body.
And we can't see it.
We won't be able to see it. No. It's very tiny. It's very, very tiny.
Very tiny, yeah.
And
all right. Thank you.
Does.
Thank you very.
Okay, good.
No, thank you very much. It's just the way you was explaining.
Yeah.
I was thinking that should be that thing, but I was not 100% sure. But
Sure.
today's episode was very interesting. The only thing is because you was reading in English, and I've got this book here.
Oh yeah. Which was?
And all the version, all the version you was reading in English, but all the version they are in Gujarati, so it's more easy for me
For you to understand
follow,
it. Yeah.
understand and follow.
Good. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The only thing is to remembering.
Yeah. Yes, it's not easy to remember. Yeah.
I did read some of the Prabhupada story because I've got the book in house, and
Good.
the way you was telling that he was 69 and he went on the boat.
Yes, that's
So
right.
it's that was very interesting, you know. I still got it in my library.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much.
Anyway, thank you very much for
Thank you very
today's
Thank you.
satsang. I think Madhuben hasn't joined today, is it?
No, she hasn't joined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hare
so-
Krishna.
Bhagavad Gita. Oh, Rohan, have you got a question?
Yeah, sorry,
Oh, yeah,
another
no
one.
problem. No problem.
It's just also, I think it's verses 8 to 12,
Yeah.
where it talks about all the types of knowledge.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
I was just wondering, so is Krishna basically saying it's ignorance to learn about, you know, other things as well, or is, I'm not sure. Was he trying to say by beside this, whatever there may be is ignorance?
Yeah. Effectively, that's what he's saying. Because the problem with gaining too much knowledge, material knowledge, is that it's going to take you away from real knowledge. That is the problem. That is the problem. And that is why he specifies that all of these items is what is going to get you closer to him, closer to God. So, for example, he doesn't say do A levels, right? So does that mean we stop doing A levels? No. Because in this world, the way it's designed, you got to get a career in order to make a living. And then later on, you'll have a family to sustain. And you need all of that through your studies. So it means you've got to study. See, in here, he doesn't say either that don't be a warrior, right? He doesn't say that. He's not saying to Arjun, stop fighting. That's not knowledge, you know. Don't practice your weaponry. He's not saying that to him. What he's saying is, these are the items that's going to take you closer to the spiritual destination. Everything else is ignorance. So in time, this requirement for freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, it has to come in time, but not necessarily immediately, because you are living in this world. He said to Arjun, do your duty and think of me at the same time, right? Both hand in hand. So your duty, for example, is to study, is to get a career, is to bring children into the world who also will become Krishna, God conscious. But at some point, there has to be this detachment from that entanglement with the children. Too much attachment with children, wife, home, will keep one in this world, will not be able to get out of this world. Does that make sense?
Okay, I think I understand. So it's basically that what he's explained here is what will help lead you on to attaining him.
Yeah.
All the other types of knowledge is in a way ignorant because it's materialistic.
Materialistic. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Very good. Amazing, actually. I'm so happy you're joining us because and asking these questions. Very important. Thank you so much. Amazing. So,
Prabhu, can I ask you something?
Yes, of course.
Sorry.
Yes. No.
You know, like the Jiv Atma is the tip of the hair. You have you divide that 1 over 10,000, isn't it?
Yep, yep,
It's the
yep.
tip.
The tip.
My God, tip. How can you divide that by 1 over 10,000? My God, I can't understand that.
That's right. It's very hard, but that's the size. That's giving the indication of the size of the soul. That's just an example.
Wow, it's almost nothing.
Exactly. And we are thinking we're the center of the universe.
Oh gosh.
This is the whole point. And that's your reaction is the reaction that we're supposed to get. That, oh, I'm that small. But yet, that small Atma can control a huge elephant or an ant, you know? So it's very powerful. That Atma.
Very powerful, yeah.
Can you imagine God's power? If we're that tiny and we can control an elephant's body, can you imagine God's power?
Yeah.
So, very nice. Very good. Thank you, Shyammalini.
That's all right. Thank you.
Prabhuji, and something else also, like, sorry, that soul is working with our brain also.
Is working with?
Brain.
Yeah.
Our brain. That we want to do something,
That's
but
right.
that soul is telling yes or no.
Yeah. Yeah. The soul, the intelligence, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So let's stop there. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.